Hello everybody and welcome along to this week's edition of the Rebel Wide Ball. And again, there's an air of pessimism maybe developing around the country as we move towards level 5. Dr. Tony had to call his postman once again last night to take another letter to government buildings instructing those in charge there that they should immediately move the country to that particular level. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but you can be almost guaranteed it will. Having said that, though, there's a little bit of, I suppose, confusion. There always is. Earlier on, when they decided level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the impression given was that if the country did move to level 5, that the All Ireland Championship would proceed in the very same way as it would be treated in the same light as elite athletes or elite activity. I think doubt has been poured upon it by Leo, the man who knows everything, who indicated that that wouldn't be the case. Anyway, we'll assume for one moment that we will have action this weekend and it will see the resumption of the Alliance National Football League. As you do know that, they played 5 rounds in the league and that all, after that, everything stopped last March. So rounds 6 and 7 are going to be played in all 4 of the divisions this weekend and next weekend. There's obviously some apprehension, as you can imagine, with some of these matches. I know, for example, Kerry play Monaghan tomorrow afternoon, and they have decided that players are going to travel, and some of them will be making a 5-hour journey to travel on their own, to try and prevent the spread of this deadly disease. And you kind of would say to yourself, like, is all of this worth it? We have another situation then where Fermanagh and Clare, and they're playing in a crucial game. And when I say crucial, the important games really, and for many of the counties, these 2 league games, this weekend and next weekend, if they do get played, are more important than any championship, particularly those teams who play in Division 2 and Division 3. Because if the Tailteann Cup, which should have been played this year, will be played next year, it will be for teams who will finish up in Division 3 and Division 4, unless they reach their own provincial finals, and for the majority of that teams, that's not going to happen. So the point I'm trying to make, rather poorly, is that these games are seriously important, particularly in those divisions. But anyway, Clare and Fermanagh hove up to 17 players unavailable because of COVID-related issues. They sought to get that game postponed. That didn't happen. And sure, like, that's going to be a big drawback when they travel to Clare this weekend. And then you have the situation where you have counties travelling long distances, and I know there's some, the league, as you know, is played, home and away, but there was some talk that, the game should be played at a neutral venue because of things are so different now. There's going to be no buses, I would imagine. There will be overnights. Take, for example, Kerry, who play Monaghan tomorrow afternoon. They're going to all have to travel individually. That's what their manager has insisted. So for some of these players, particularly the South Kerry crowd, could mean travelling 5 hours tomorrow morning or whenever to play that particular match. Then you have Galway, who are on top of Division 1 and have an opportunity to win the league for the very first time ever. And there's going to be no league finals. The team on top are going to be deemed the winners. They're going to be missing a number of players through injury, but then Mike Cullen, who were the county champions up there, have withdrawn all their players from the county panel because of problems with COVID in that particular area. So my God, these are strange times. But anyway, the first team that goes into action from a Cork point of view is the Cork Miners, and they play in the Munster Championship tomorrow. And basically, it's kind of like a championship from another era because it's straight knockout. There's no second chance. Cork, as I say, they play Clare in Simple Stadium with throw-in at 1 o'clock, and the winner, say, would play Limerick in a Munster semi-final. This is Donlow Cusick's first year in charge, and as far as I know, it's going to be his only year in charge because they have a succession agreement in place, Cork County Board, and it means that Noel Furling will be taking over next year. But anyway, to speak about this year, and he has a few, a big backroom staff, including fellas like Sean Oka helping and Tom Kinney. I think that they have a real good chance in this, and I never thought that there was a huge problem with Cork underage. Okay, maybe they weren't winning most of the championship. Maybe that Cork schools weren't winning the big competitions, but they were coming close. And I remember a couple of Munster championship matches involving Cork minor teams over the past number of years, beaten by a narrow margins, what have you. But of course, look, unless you deliver the silverware, there'll always be the prophets of doom around the place. Now, minor, as you know, is under 17, and the team that they've selected for tomorrow's match, I'm not saying it is unusual, but it actually reflects big time where the centres of population in this country are, in this county are now. The majority of the players are from East Cork, from the city clubs, and from clubs closely surrounding the city. In actual fact, there's only one player it's not on the team, that's on the panel of 30, Darragh O'Sullivan from Ballinhassig, and that's the only player west of the viaduct. There's a Ballygavin player, but can you consider that West Cork? So there's a huge centralisation of the hurling population, and also they come from, I think there's 12 of the team. The selected 15 come from just 4 schools. You have Christian Brothers College, that they have the majority of them. They have 4 players. Then you have Middleton CBS with 3 players. Presentation College, by the way, which, as far as I know, doesn't have a huge number of hurling teams in there. They have 3, and you've Coláiste Cullen with 2. But any of the team that has been selected tomorrow, we'll just roughly go through it for you. Brian Saunderson from Middleton is the goalkeeper. The full back line, then Shane Kingston from Ballinora, who's also a very good footballer. Kermick Smith from the Middleton club, and then the left corner back position is taken by Kevin Leon from Ballygavin. It's not too often that we have called out Ballygavin players and Cork teams, but anyway, that's the case for this one. The half-back line, the team captain plays at 5, and that's Robert Downey's brother, Owen, and he'll probably be known as that until he begins to establish himself. Ben O'Connor from the Bars at centre-back, and also an accomplished rugby player, and Michael Mullins from Whitechurch. That's the half-back line. Midfield, we've got 2 Ballincollig players operating at 8 and 9, and that's Brian Keating and James Dwyer. The half-forward line, then you have Alex Quirk, and of course that surname would be synonymous with Middleton hurling teams down through the years. Colin Walsh is really the only culture on this team. He comes from Kanturk and goes to school in Coláiste. So outside the centres of population, he's the only person, the only player from, if you like, the rural side of County Cork that's starting. Tygo O'Connell is a young player from Ballincollig, will wear the number 12 jersey. And then the inside line, and a lot of, we won't say pressure but a lot of the scores will come from Ben Cunningham, and a bit like one down earlier on, Ben Cunningham will be known as Ger Cunningham's son until he begins to make a mark, and I have absolutely no doubt the reports of this, he's a really talented player. So then he's from the Bars Club. Mark Howell comes from Douglas. His brother also played for the Cork Miners down through the years, and Owen O'Leary from Glen Rovers makes up the team. So, as I said, I think that they have a real good chance of winning that match and proceeding to the Munster Championship. And, we've been hearing that a lot of preparation has gone into the team and under Don Low Cusick. So I'd imagine that they'll be well up for that. Oftentimes, the minor team that's selected for the first championship match, that's probably the last time that they will play together, because players will come on tomorrow, and maybe some players that will may not make starting the team again. But a lot of these players have been involved in development squads, and huge work has gone into them by a large number of people right throughout the county, none more so than their clubs and of course in their schools. Then the Cork Senior footballers, the last time they played was on was it Sunday the 1st of March, and here we are nearly the end of October when they resume their league action. Now it's quite simple. Cork have won all of their matches, and if they pick up 1 point from their remaining 2 games against Low tomorrow at 4 o'clock in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and then on Sunday week next, they travel to Longford for a 2 o'clock throw-in. I'd expect them to pick up the 2 points tomorrow. 1 will do, and that means then that there'd be no fear of them playing in the Tailteann Cup next year. So the team selected, I think there's 6 that remains from the team that played Derry all those months ago. So the team will line out when Micheál Martin is in goal. You could say that's if his father guarantees us that the country won't be moving to level 5 before 4 o'clock tomorrow evening. The full back line, you have Kevin Faher and Douglas, Maurice Shanley from Clonakilty and Paul Ring from the Ahabullock Club. And, you know, Paul is, it's a while since there was an Ahabullock player featuring a Cork senior football team. It's not his first game, by the way, so he wears the number 4 shirt. The half-back line is Kevin O'Donovan from Nemo Rangers, Matty Taylor, who's one of the seasoned players now from the Mallow Club, and left half-back is King Kiley from Ballincollig. The midfield pairing, we have Ian Maguire, and this is the 6th successive time that he'll wear the number 8 jersey in this league campaign. He's the team captain, he's a great leader, and you know, obviously much will depend on his performance. This time he's partnered by Paul Walsh from... I mean, if you're Walsh, more than likely you're from Kanturk, but isn't it a great club, you know, in terms of supplying players for, you know, Cork hurling and football teams. And, you know, we might be talking a little bit more about dual players a little later on in dual clubs. The half-forward line, great to see Rory Dean back, because he actually got injured prior to that game against Derry the last time they played. And, you know, it was one of those cruciate ligament problems. And, you know, if the campaign had gone ahead, he would have missed a lot of the games and probably the Munster Championship as well. Great to see him back in action. Killian O'Hanlon moves from midfield to centre forward. He's from the Kilshanny Club. And then Kevin O'Donovan from Tyg McCorrig wears the number 12 jersey. The inside line, Damien Gore, who played that day against Derry the last game. He's from Kilmacabea Club. Colm O'Callaghan comes into the side from Éireog, and left the remaining position goes Paul Kerrigan. Now, Cork are missing, obviously, a number of players through injuries. Some of them long-term, unfortunately. Kieran Sheehan and Tomás Clancy. Kieran from Éireog and Tomás Clancy from Fermoy. And then you have other players I noticed not on the team tomorrow, like the Hurley brothers and Luke Connolly. But still to be a big surprise, regardless of what Cork team are put out tomorrow, that they wouldn't get overload, you know, who are in danger themselves of being relegated. So it's you know, I mean, it's an amazing, like, that we're going to be talking about these matches. But as I say too, this league, and when at the start of the year, it was really Cork's main ambition, get out of Division 3, and that can be achieved this afternoon, or tomorrow afternoon. We spoke, I think, briefly last week about, you know, the dual players, and it was just beginning to emerge then, and we're talking now about ladies football and Camogie. And a lot of noise has been made about the two organisations, but let's get one thing straight. There's no such thing as dual players into the county level anymore. So at least they're still there in Camogie's ladies football. But there's obviously a serious disconnect between both organisations, the Camogie Association and the Ladies Football Association. And we had a motion at the Camogie's convention, their convention last week, where they basically refused to pass a motion and to accept the whole ethos of the dual player. And the ladies football did likewise back in March, I think it was. I'm not too sure that motions is the way to go about this, but like, it's a huge pity that there is not the one organisation. But there's vested interests in place here. There's also I suppose, look, there's lack of cooperation at county levels. I'm not too sure, do the Cork Camogie Board and the Cork Ladies Football Board, do they ever sit down and talk to each other about you know, planning a programme that would facilitate dual player at club level? The 4 players involved, as we mentioned last week, we've Libby Compinger, Hannah Looney. They'd be the 2 of the highest profile and would be starting on both of them. And then you've Fiona Keating, Maeve Callan and Ciara McCarthy. Now, there was talk during the week that they were going to go on strike, would you believe? Laura Tracy from the Killer Club, who's on the Camogie team, more or less implied that this could happen. They were due to play, the Cork Camogie team were due to play this weekend, and for the controversy then when Offaly had to pull out of that game due to COVID-related matters. Now, look, a bit like hurling, I mean, Camogie is not played, a high standard of Camogie at inter-county level is not played in a huge number of counties, and if you went through, you know, there's probably 5 or 6 top counties, and that's it. Offaly certainly, and one of them. So that game has gone off. But the big clash was going to be on the 7th of November, where Cork were carrying the ladies football, and Cork and Galway were to play in the Camogie. Thankfully, Galway offered to switch the Camogie game to Sunday, so that's that bit of a battle out of the way. A week later, though, they're back in action again, because Cork play, is it Cavan in the football, and the quarterfinals of the Camogie Championship are on. But I'd imagine that, eventually something will move that to allow these players, but it's just a little bit of a pity. Now, they're only asking to move 24 hours, and that's all that can happen. I mean, let's get real about this, that there's not enough time to allow a week's space, and you're never going to have a completely satisfactory situation. But the real grief comes when both semi-finals are fixed for the week. I think the weekend around the 28th of November, and there's television rights here. You have I think RT are involved with the Camogie, and you have TG Carr involved with the ladies football. So we're going to have to see how that's going to play out. But as I kind of mentioned earlier, it's not a case of that GAA folk can look in and say, it's a pity that these crowd are at each other's throats at one level. Well, maybe if they were at each other's throats, maybe it would be a good thing. At least they'd be talking. But let's not forget that the inter-county dual player in the male side of the house has been completely dispensed with a long number of years, and I'm just wondering, will there be any dual minor even this year, let alone senior and under 20. I suppose finally, to the racing world, and I know you're going to say, look, stick to what maybe you should know about, but in terms of hot racing, it is the Coleman brothers who from Inishannon were in the news, but we'll speak about Aidan first. And those of you that follow horse racing, and maybe I'm not too sure that there's a big following of this particular page that do, but Aidan Coleman, he's an Inishannon native. He's been in England for about 12 or 13 years and a very, very successful jockey over there. Has ridden over 1,000 winners and has always been in the top dozen jockeys in the Jump Jockeys Championship in England. He got a fall back in July and injured his shoulder, and that kept him out of action until today, actually. But during the week, he was made the #1 jockey at Ollie Murphy's stable, and Ollie Murphy is a young upcoming trainer in England, but coincidentally or otherwise there's a strong Inishannon connection, because his father Aidan Murphy is from this particular neck of the woods, and he's a well-known bloodstock dealer. So it's interesting, isn't it, that Aidan Coleman from Inishannon is now riding for Ollie Murphy, whose father came from the same place. And Aidan was back in the saddle today, and their first, they got their first winner as a pair, in Fakenham Race Course, I think it was, when a horse called Here Comes Johnny got over the line in first place. So it's great to see Aidan back after the injury. But I think it's a nice story that, the Inishannon connection, we're going to refer to it. Aidan's brother Kevin, who was a jockey himself, but then a couple of years ago decided to take up training, and he's based in Carrick-on-Shore, and he had his 4th winner this season. And, for a young trainer, he hasn't a huge stable of horses, maybe 8 or 10 of them, when the horse named Swiss Army Officer won in Mallow. So, well done. And, over time, maybe we talk about it, like Cork is huge for horses, and the number of jockeys from this county that are successful in Ireland and in England is unbelievable, from all over County Cork, and it's a big part of many people's lives. So well done to all of those. So that's it, my folks, until the next time, and all I can say is take care, and until then, slán.